Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they've spent. Take another look and take some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Well, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, it's time for hemp.
Yes, it is. It is time for hemp, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the big broadcast. I am your host, Casper Leitch, and you can find other broadcasts like this at timeforhemp.news, and it's all free to download. We got videos there, we got audios there, we got great music there. And here today, we've got somebody on the line that you're going to enjoy hearing from, and we got a couple of great joint hosts as well. Don't forget, anytime you hear the word joint on the big broadcast, we ask that you hit your pipes, your bongs, and your vaporizers and take time for hemp. Ain't that right, Al Graham?
Yes, it is. Correct. It is right. We always like to take time for hemp, no matter what time of the day it is. How you doing, Casper?
Pretty groovy. You got a lot going on up there at the Pace Network.
Yes, people advocating cannabis education. You can find the Pace Network at paceradio.net. We cover psychedelics as well as cannabis 7 days a week.
And also on the big broadcast,
as Friday mornings at 10 o'clock.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty groovy. Remember that, 10 o'clock a.m.
Eastern.
And also on the big broadcast today as a joint host is the author of this groovy book, Al Byrne. Hey, Al.
Hi. I don't think I've heard groovy in quite a while. You're dating yourself.
You bet you're bippy I'm dating myself.
Groovy. Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it's a groovy book. You know, I'll go with it. And I did write it, and it's been written. And if you don't have one, I'd suggest you get a hold of it, especially if you're a healthcare professional, a patient, somebody that loves one or cares for a patient or somebody sick or a veteran. It's 360 pages of basically medical cannabis information wrapped into a story of 40-year history of how did this happen anyway? How did we get medical cannabis in the United States?
Speaking of veterans with great stories, you've got a friend that you brought to our network a long time ago who's a friend of ours now. Why don't you introduce him?
I will do that. And Casper is an Army veteran, and I am a Navy veteran, and our guest is a Marine Corps veteran, which, of course, he's in the Navy, you see, but part of the Navy is called the Marines in the United States for us Canadian people. But Marines are a separate entity of themselves. They have their own history, their own dignity, their own honor, and they deserve it all. So what we got here is we've got a retired Marine officer, a combat veteran, and a guy I've known now for several years, had some great discussions, and we're going to have one today. His name is Bryan Buckley.
Hey, Bryan.
How are you?
Hey, Bryan.
All right. Yeah, you guys are groovy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just think we're old geezers, but if we're groovy old geezers, I'll amend it. Yeah.
I got my bell bottoms on. We're good.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And no, I appreciate that. Yeah, we are a department in the Navy. The Marine Corps is. We like to think of ourselves as the men department. So, yeah, have to pick it up there for him a little bit.
I love inter-service humor. If you are not familiar with it, you might think these guys are demeaning each other or something. Just the opposite. It's just the military is its own little world, and it was a great one to be in, and I know you felt that way too. So give us a short background, and then let's go into different things we've discussed, but we go into your business problems with California, any way you want to go. So you were a Marine once.
Yes. Yeah. So I originally went to University of Massachusetts to play football. 9/11 took place. So I decided I wanted to get into the military, and I was actually looking at the Navy and transferred to Villanova University, got into the ROTC unit with there. And that's when I just started falling in love with the Marine Corps. So I shifted over to the Marine option and graduated. And I was in my first platoon was in 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines out of Camp Lejeune. And I went to Iraq, came back from that deployment. They gave me an opportunity to try out for Marine Reconnaissance, made that. So they gave me orders to 2nd Reconnaissance Battalion, also at Camp Lejeune, and did another deployment to Iraq. And then around that time, the Marine Corps got into the special operations world, and we established what is now known as the Marine Raiders. So it's the same as the Navy SEALs or Army Green Berets, and was fortunate enough to make that and spent a majority of my time in the Marine Corps as a Marine Raider, as a team commander. So I was with them also in Camp Lejeune and Camp Pendleton out here in California, and did deployments to Afghanistan, Southeast Asia, and Africa. So that was a really interesting time. I got to learn a lot more about, not just the military side, but working with the government more, with embassies and things like that. So really was just an amazing experience, and just so fortunate and blessed to serve with the people I served with, and how many people I met. And not just that, like during my active duty time, but even on the veteran side, still obviously heavily engaged with veterans and just some really amazing patriots. So yeah, I could talk for days about that. So
well, you got a huge slice of the world. I mean, the environment that you were moved around in allowed you to see a variety of aspects of poverty, pain, human nature, culture, that probably opened your eyes to a new way of blending the human race together.
Sure, absolutely. It was just, very interesting seeing all these different cultures. It really made me feel so blessed, winning the lottery, being born in America, and just, obviously we're not perfect. There's a lot of things we can improve upon, but I still think one of the best experiments out there is the United States of America. And, I just kind of reflect on some of the places I've been and the people I've met, and I've seen the very best in people, and I've seen the very worst in people. Definitely eye-opening.
It's some of the worst in people that you've had to deal with that has now brought you into the environment that you're working yourself into now. Your own organization and your own approach to dealing with the problems that society hands veterans when they leave the military, and they have a lot to deal with, a lot of baggage.
Yeah, that's for sure. And one of my friends one time told me, I think it was during the November time frame, and obviously that's big with Veterans Day and the Marine Corps birthday and all this stuff. So I was like a centerfold or something in High Times, and my buddy's like, whoever would ever think we would see Bryan Buckley like in the High Times magazine and all that stuff. But it's been a very interesting ride, and never really dealt with anything on the cannabis side growing up. But now being a veteran and dealing with the things I'm dealing with and seeing what other veterans are dealing with, it's just amazing what cannabis can do for people. And, we're making progress, but still it's kind of baffling at times where we're not making fast enough, I think, improvements that we could to our
But
health.
you've reached the understanding that cannabis brings peace of mind to those who have to wrestle with a lot of demons.
Absolutely. Both, not just on, what you're going through like everyday life, but also on like, the physical side of the pain relief and things that cannabis can do versus opiates. It's an amazing Swiss Army knife, if you want to put it that way. I think
you've done at least 2 positive actions to get involved with the things you're talking about. Why don't you tell the audience about the foundation, your growers association, whatever you want.
Yeah. So what originally was around the 2016 timeframe. I think that's, I got out of the military in 2013 and was just kind of head down in the corporate America world, just making money. Right. And, not only was I dealing with some demons, but I started kind of seeing what was happening with veterans. So I decided to start a nonprofit called Battle Brothers Foundation. And originally I was just using it to, help out veterans with their VA disability claims. And it just kind of grew from there. And again, saying I was dealing with some demons, one of my friends said, hey, why don't you try some cannabis? Obviously a little bit apprehensive at first, but, I kind of felt desperate. I'm like, hey, I'm willing to try it out. And I'll just never forget the first time I had some cannabis. It was the first time I went to had a full night of sleep in I don't know how many years. I went, wow, this is pretty remarkable, and kept having positive results. And it just led me to talk to more veterans about it and hearing how well it was helping them. So I decided to say hey, why can't I go to the VA and get, 15 pills of opiates or whatever like that? But it seems like this cannabis plant can answer so many issues I'm dealing with. And sat down, met with some members of Congress and said, what would I have to do to get cannabis into the VA system? And after they were done laughing at me, they said, listen, if you can go out and, get data and have it backed by American doctors, you're going to have a very positive argument. So I was at a UCLA cannabis symposium one night, listening to doctors speak. It was all well and good, but the most provocative part of that night was during a coffee break. And I met a gentleman named Alon Blot, and Alon is an Israeli, and he has a medical firm called Niametic Healthcare and Research Services. And they really kind of got onto the map way back when Dr. Sanjay Gupta did a series on CNN. He actually flew over to Israel, and he was with Niametic, and they were showing what cannabis was doing for the senior citizen community. And when I had discussions with them, they're like, you're going to need to get this thing called an institutional review board, or an IRB. And that falls under the FDA. And it means you have been cleared to whatever you're researching, you can now use it on human subjects. And they're like, listen, it's going to be very difficult to get. It's very serious business, obviously, whenever you're testing something out on a human being. And in America, it's a Schedule I narcotic. So they're like, we'll see what we can do here. And I was trying to think how can I make money to get this thing going and also spread the word about what I'm doing. So I decided to start a company out here in California called Helmand Valley Growers Company, or HVGC. And those four letters are significant in the Marine Raider world. It originally meant the Helmand Valley Gun Club, and you were able to get an HVGC tattoo if you were a Raider and you served in the Helmand province. So I wanted to, kind of pay tribute to all the men and women who did time in the Helmand. And also I thought it was a kind of a, cool way, a cool name, if you could, a cool brand. So I established that company, and with the money we made off of that, with our profits, we put back into the nonprofit to help raise money to get this IRB going. And that IRB cost about $150,000. So once we had that money, we went forward, put together a plan of action, went to the IRB. And basically what IRB is, it's a panel of doctors, and they're going through everything, making sure your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed. And we got approval for it. And once we got approval for that, we were able to get the University of California at Irvine to come on to be our principal investigators. They're strictly in an observational role, so they're not going to be touching any THC. So they were cleared to participate in that. So essentially, we'd have Israeli doctors working with U.S. veterans and having American doctors kind of in the background validating, yep, that happened, and away we go. So right now, we're still in discussions with Congress. We have that sitting on their desk, and we're hoping by next summer we would get the approval to get the first study going, which will probably be about the $2 to $3 million range. And once we have that data, we would have a recommended treatment protocol and a formulation. We would move it into another state outside of California just to prove that it's repeatable and accessible. And if that goes well, which we are very bullish it will, because the Israelis have had very positive results with it, that's when we start going to the double blinds and so on and so forth. And hopefully, at some point, we actually have Hellman Valley Growers Company product in the VA system where veterans can have it prescribed, being the key word, to help out with what their ailments are.
So let me just interrupt.
Mhm.
So if you're out there with a couple of $1 million and you're looking for a really, really effective place to put your money as a donation, as philanthropy, you might want to get a hold of Bryan. This is a program of much importance. It would mean so much to the veteran community. I can't tell you what it would mean to us. And for a lot of you, a couple of $1 million isn't a lot of money. I know that. And if you could reach out to Bryan or me or somebody, we'll be glad to take this money. And I'll tell you, I know this man. It will be spent appropriately.
Any idea what state you're looking at next?
We've looked at Colorado. Basically what I've learned is kind of how the VA systems are broken down. They essentially have like districts, and one area in Colorado, they're trying to become a more progressive VA system where not just cannabis, but they also want to look at the psychedelics as well and see how it goes. And they're actually, more or less recruiting medical professionals who are open to that idea of cannabis and psychedelics. So that might be a spot we would like to go next. But we've had this plan, like I said, since like 2016. So here we are, almost coming up on a decade. So I think once we get through that first study and we show this is what we did, I'm hoping we have a lot of options and VA systems raising their hands saying we would like to try it out here.
Well, I know one of our joint hosts is pretty much into psychedelics, aren't you, Al Graham?
Yeah. Oh, yes. We cover psychedelics on the network, but and it's great. The stuff I'm seeing in the news with the veterans and psychedelics and getting, going through the process. I think it's fantastic what we're seeing, and if you can branch into that, then that opens up a whole new door for you.
Well, and part of it too is that everybody knows that Canada is like one big party country. It's like, spring break 12 months out of the year. So you're all psychedelics and smoking pot and woohoo.
Well, they're sitting on frozen lakes, theoretically fishing and just getting wasted on Moosehead Ale. That's what they're doing.
And I think it's great too, because we need options. I tell people, like, listen, cannabis is not a silver bullet where it's going to heal everything. And some people might not need cannabis. I mean, we do see that it could enhance if you, it could make some things a little bit worse on some people. But you look at the psychedelics, that might be more the answer. I was working with an Army veteran, and he was saying, hey, I think I need cannabis. And it's like, man, I don't know if that's going to be appropriate for what you need. Maybe the psychedelic path might be more appropriate for you. So I just think having the options out there for that veteran is going to be paramount.
You started this interview talking about your friend that went to an ayahuasca retreat or ceremony in order to help him out. So the benefits are there, and doesn't seem to me to be the stigma around the psychedelics as it does around the cannabis end of things. Whether it's just because it's not smoking or what, I'm not sure. But I think you're going to see the psychedelic end of things accelerate.
I agree with you. It seems like that has more momentum, and I'm not sure why, but whatever. That's all good. But it seems, if I had to pick which one will get across the goal line first, I think it's going to be the psychedelics would be the first thing to kind of get that big approval here in America. And then I think cannabis would shortly follow after that.
Well, I told my story before, but I had these terrible migraine headaches, and I tried cannabis to alleviate it, and it really didn't do anything at all for me. And they call them cluster headaches. The pain is friggin' incredible. And they had it for 20 years. They gave me all kinds of pills. I used to carry around an oxygen bottle. I had one in my truck. And that would help. If the thing was coming on, I could feel it. If I got enough oxygen in, but nothing worked. And then a doctor that we all know, a buddy of mine, called up and said, "Listen, have you tried psilocybin mushrooms for your cluster headaches?" And no, it worked. I had one dose of psilocybin mushrooms, and these incredible headaches I'd had for 20 years were gone. And that was 20 some years ago. So I'm a believer. If it can help anybody anywhere, especially a veteran, the VA, as Al says, there is a move in the VA to push this forward. Thank goodness. I'm with you, Bryan. I don't know why, but I don't care. That's what they want. I'm into it, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, Al, you're proof of it working with Dan.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But, you said you did it 20 years ago and you're still.
Well, I'll back up my story. So the doctor that told me this, you guys know his name, Ethan Russo.
Yeah.
So Ethan calls me up. How the hell did it go? It's fine. It's great. It's fine. Wow. So he's in Missoula, Montana. And he says, "Listen, I got a buddy of mine, an MD, that's got the same problem. Can you send her some of the same mushrooms that you use?" Well, it's illegal, Ethan. So I did it. And she got them. And she called me, and I told her what I had done. Basically, take the psilocybin, not an overwhelming dose. Like it was my recollection, a couple of stems and a couple of buttons, just, this size, small size. Chew them up, take them down as fast as you can with grapefruit juice. There seems to be something in the acid of the grapefruit juice. And then, so anyway, she tried it, didn't work. She tried it again, worked. Hasn't had a headache either. So it took her twice, took me once, but it's back up. And it wasn't just those mushrooms. It was like mushrooms are the key here.
Well, speaking of key, I know money is key. And Bryan, I think you've got a GoFundMe for people to reach out to as well, don't you?
Yeah. I know it's going to come up here on the show. I was fortunate enough to meet up with a guy named Jason Baldwin, who was at a ceremony. I wasn't at this one. Well, I've never done one before, to be honest, but he linked up with a couple of buddies that I have, and talking about this great movie that he put together called Tourniquet. And it's an amazing script. I think he got motivated after the, I say the quote unquote withdrawal of Afghanistan back in the late summer of 2021, which was a really rough time for a lot of veterans. And it's just, I think we really got an issue that us veterans know about, but I don't think society has really understood of how big of a problem we're having with the suicides in the veteran community.
Well, listen, the movie, although we're making some fun here, and it is fun to do that to a Marine. The other thing is, this movie is a pretty serious subject. Not serious subjects I've had to deal with in my lifetime, and it goes on every day and every night, everywhere, and we got to stop it somehow. So one of the approaches, apparently, and I'm going to let Bryan tell you about this, is he has an acquaintance, a friend, and they have a movie. And Bryan Buckley, please explain to us where you are and where this is. And I think, Al Graham, you can bring up something on there. Yeah, here we go.
I'll do that.
Go ahead, Bryan. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. So, friends of mine that I served with in the Marine Corps were doing an ayahuasca ceremony, and they met this great Army veteran named Jason Baldwin. And Jason has been in, the acting industry, if you will, for quite some time now. And, has done some things on CBS that shows SWAT and some other roles here and there. But I believe after what happened during in August of 2021, during that chaotic, quote unquote withdrawal of Afghanistan, really hit a lot of veterans very hard, especially the veterans of the global war on terrorism. Essentially we went into Afghanistan, and, we leave 20 years later, and it's probably in a worse place than it was when we got there. So he wrote this script for a movie called Tourniquet. And why I really wanted to get involved with this is the massive problem we're having with veteran suicide. If you actually looked at the military members we lost in the Korean War, the Vietnam War, Persian Gulf War, and the global war on terrorism, we've lost actually more people from 2001 to now from suicide than we did in all those wars combined. It's a very, very, very serious issue that people just are not discussing. And what I think this movie will do is really highlight the situations we're having and kind of make it more mainstream. And hopefully it will lead to helping to reduce this veteran suicide situation.
Well,
You know,
that's a pretty high number and a pretty odd fact. What on earth is driving that many human beings who have served their country and defended our freedoms to take their life?
I wish we had the answer. I sit on a veteran advisory board for a member of the United States Congress named Madeleine Dean. And Madeleine, she's a Democrat. My political party is the United States of America. And I just think if your country asks you to serve, you serve. So I will help out Democrats, I'll help out Republicans, and everyone in between. Mm-hmm. And we were having a conversation on one of our phone calls, probably back in the early spring. And, I'm not going to go down a political realm here, but we were talking about some of the things that was going on with the VA. And in terms of, do we have enough doctors and so on and so forth. And that can go any way you want to take it. And I was kind of quiet during it. And I was asked, what are you thinking about? And I'm like, well, the summer's coming. And that's when the suicides start to happen. It just seems like every summer, 3 or 4 times throughout it, I'm getting a phone call about this guy committed suicide and I'm like, that's what's scaring me. And then sure enough, early June, I get a phone call from her. And when you get those phone calls, sometimes you just have that feeling like this isn't going to be good. And I just knew, I'm like, something's up here. And she's very upset. And she told me one of the members on her staff, who was an Army veteran, committed suicide the night before. And she's like, Bryan, you called it. You said the summer's coming and this is going to happen. And she's like, and I just can't believe it happened to, one of my members of my staff. And she asked that, she's like, why is it the summertime? And I told her in particular with the GWAT veterans, that was what we would call the fighting season in Afghanistan. They would, wintertime, they're back down in Pakistan, the Taliban are. They're just kind of hanging out. And then as soon as the spring comes up, they come back up for Pakistan and they have the farmers throw out poppy. They grow that and then it will cultivate it into essentially heroin. And it's what we would refer to as the fighting season. And I was like, I just think a lot of the demons kind of come back up at that time for people.
Yeah. Let me just interrupt you. I just want absolutely on. I was once a counselor for the Agent Orange program in the VA. Mm-hmm. What we call it in the veteran language, what Bryan has just discussed, is anniversaries. That's really big on anniversaries. If they got shot or blown up or something on a particular day, boy, coming up on that day for the rest of their lives is horrible. And that triggers these types of suicide incidents that Bryan is concentrating on. To answer Casper's question, go back to what I said about being a counselor. I was a counselor in 1990 and a few years on either side, right? So that's 15 years after the Vietnam War, where we had 58,000 and a few more killed, KIA, down. They're not coming home. By that time in 1990, Vietnam veterans had more had committed suicide than had died there. Yeah. 15 years later. So the numbers as we go forward with all these other different combat vets like Bryan, it's so this movie. So the name Tourniquet, right there, it's like, what's that about?
Yeah, it's I really liked how he presented it because it's about a son. There's a father and a son. So the son served in Afghanistan, and his father served in the Vietnam War. And try not to give away too much of the movie, but, you know, different wars, but kind of same issues. And you'll see during it, one kind of gets reminded by the demons and starts going down a dark path, where the other starts to find redemption and starts to, you know, build the courage to live and, you know, not just kind of go down a path of destruction. And it's just, anyone, you know, Al, I can send you the script and you'll read it and it will just blend right into like a personal story for you. It's a very personal, I think, to all veterans that we can all relate to. And it's really captivating, I think, for the audience. You know, my wife read the first page of the script and was just totally sucked in by it. He does a really great job. And that's where, again, we just want to kind of present something that this is like your next door neighbor. This could be your cousin, your brother, your sister, or loved one. It happens to a lot of us. And I just think this is going to be a very powerful kind of, after you see this movie, you're going to sit there for 30 seconds and not say a word and you're just going to be thinking, what the heck did I just see? But, you know, I think we got to start making the suicide discussion more mainstream. I think it was one of those things we just don't like to talk about, and we kind of hope it kind of goes away, and it's not. And I've really faced this hard in the Raider community, where we've lost a lot of guys to suicide, and we lost 3 guys last summer. And these are guys who were not like, you know, they're sitting in a bar and just drinking their life away. I mean, these are guys, you know, one guy got an MBA from Columbia University and was doing great. There were no big, like, traditional red flags, and I wanted to talk about that after this. But we decided that we're like, hey, listen, instead of just saying like, you know, oh man, suicide's a bad thing, we got to really kind of get in people's face about it. And one thing we all started talking about was, you're giving the enemy a victory. You know, that bullet, it might have just took that bullet 15 years to find you, but the enemy did essentially kill you. And, you know, talking about the collateral damage, that fine, you hit the easy button, you killed yourself. But for the rest of the lives of your friends and family, they're going to be tormented by thinking, what could I have done? Could I have done more for them? And that's truly the horrible part of it. And it's like, hey, you know, pick it up, put that ruck back on your back and get forward with life. I mean, don't just sit there and kill yourself, because that's just the easy way out, and you're giving the enemy a victory. And this summer was the first summer in a while that we didn't have one suicide. So we don't know if that was maybe just having that kind of hard discussion about it where, oh, please don't kill yourself, you got so much to live. Well, no, we kind of turned it back and saying, you're letting the enemy win if you're going to take your life. And maybe something like that triggered something and just kind of got things out there for people to talk about. And, you know, everyone always asks, you know, why is it, or what is it? Like, how do you know if someone's going to do it, or is there any traditional signs? There isn't. And a bunch of the Raiders I've served with, we're all in this one big Signal chat. There's probably like 50 of us on this thing. And we started talking about the suicides. And one guy said, he's like, you know, he's like, I want to share something with you. He's like, I got up one morning, all the bills are paid, life is good, not an issue in the world. I made a cup of coffee and I'm ready to walk out on my porch and just take in a beautiful San Diego morning. And he's like, as I walked outside and sat down, a voice in my head said, today you're going to kill yourself. And he's like, and I put my coffee down and I was ready just to walk in my house, walk up my stairs, grab my gun and do it. But as soon as I opened that door, he kind of went, whoa, what the heck? And was like, what is going on here? And kind of thought about it, sat down, started processing it, and was like, it was so scary of just how nonchalant it was. Like, hey, go upstairs and brush your teeth. Like, it was just kind of like a second nature. And when he shared that story with you, I'm not kidding, guys, 8 more guys rogered up at that point and said, I had the same experience. Just something one day just said, go do this. And I was about to do it. And for whatever reason, I stopped. So it's not like something like, oh, your buddy's going through a divorce or your buddy lost a job. They might be more prone to it. These demons can come up and bite you at any moment. And again, these are things that we got to get out there in the open and not make people feel so isolated or weird. Like, we're all dealing with this.
What separates the military experience with suicide from a civilian in the aspect? There's a lot of people who deal with the suicide issue, but they're also bipolar. And so there's a chemical imbalance or an understanding of that nature, and they can deal with it by taking a bipolar medication. And but is it that a military experience, something on the battlefield that all these military members have in common? Is it because they've been dealing with death on the battlefield, or is it still something even more?
Let me answer your question before you finish it. There's two things going on in that question. The first thing is trauma is trauma. Whether that trauma occurs on a battlefield or because somebody is trapped in a burning house is immaterial. It's trauma, okay? It's where that trauma comes from. A serious car accident. And here's the deal with post-traumatic stress. It's not a disorder. The D is inappropriate. Post-traumatic stress is what it is. Post, after, what? After what? Traumatic stress. I mean, bam. All right, so here's the way you get post-traumatic stress. There's only three ways. And you can have all three. And unfortunately, that's one of the answers to Casper's question. Because in the military, you experience all three ways to be traumatized. Traumatized, number one, you kill somebody. You actually get to the point where you have to kill another human being. That is trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Second way to get it, that other human being tries to kill you and almost does. Puts 4 bullets in you and somehow you make it. That's trauma number 2. Third trauma is Bryan is getting shot up and his buddy is standing next to him watching it happen. And at that moment cannot help Bryan. Trauma number 3. So in combat, the soldier, the sailor, the airman experiences all three, sometimes at the exact same moment. So their post-traumatic stress can be serious, but it's all serious. The other thing we found as counselors back in the day, and we dealt almost exclusively with Vietnam veterans, combat veterans of Vietnam, not guys that sat on ships, but guys that rode the boats in the river, and the Marines, we had Army, whatever. 60% of the men and women diagnosed with post-traumatic stress after Vietnam had post-traumatic stress before they even went in the military, which is, I've talked to some researchers at the University of Texas about a year ago about this, and they went, what? What did you just tell me? So what you got is you got some kid that was grown up and beat up by his dad for his whole friggin' life. He's already got post-traumatic stress. Or a girl that comes into the military and she's been raped or abused somehow. She's got post-traumatic stress. Then they put them in the military and shit. So there is a difference, but it isn't, they're not in treatment. And both the person that has this horrible car wreck and her brother dies next to her and all that, the cannabis will work for her and will work for the veteran. I don't mean to interrupt, but I think these are important little facts, historical life that I've led that people need to hear. But you think about that when you're dealing with post-traumatic stress as a veteran, and you're talking to your veteran buddy, girl, boy, whoever their friend is, you got to find out, wait a minute, what happened to you? You know, before you got in the Marines, before you got in the Air Force, what the hell? You know, it's all important. And it's important to listen. And as Bryan says, it's important to talk. You have to talk to each other. Veterans have to talk to each other. Civilians that have been traumatized, you need to talk to your husband, your brother, your father, your priest. Talk to somebody. It helps. It really does help. And it helps to avoid these anniversary problems. I'm sorry, Bryan, but
yeah, you know, Al, that was perfect. And I was about to say, I mean, that's what I think one of the big parts is that anniversary time. You know, especially I brought up earlier about the fighting season from May through October. You know, I'm sure, Al, you probably have the very similar experiences. I mean, first thing I wake up and I think about is usually combat. And before I go to bed, the last thing I'll think about is usually combat. I still have the dreams and everything. War is it's exciting and terrible. And it definitely, I think it envelops itself around your soul. It's always going to be a part of you. Even when I first got into Marine Corps, and I don't care what people say, when you see people with a bunch of medals and all this stuff, you're like, man, that looks so cool. And I want to be like that. And, you get into these units, and trust me, I loved going to combat. I loved being in the infantry and reconnaissance and special operations. Like, I wanted to do that. There is no play a little violin for me, like what they do to you. No, I wanted that. But it comes at a cost. And you're just never going to be the same person again. And I think, to Al's point, you got to talk about and have these conversations. For me, it's very therapeutic just to have conversations with people and talk about things I experience. I know other people, they don't like to, and that's fine. That's their journey. But it's definitely something that will always be with me. It's always going to be with every veteran. And you're going to have these demons that you're never going to beat. You just have to learn to live to fly above them. And it's literally one day at a time. So I think having these conversations and getting it out there that, hey, you're not some weirdo or you're isolated and you're the only one. There's hundreds of thousands of us who are dealing with the same issues that you're dealing with. And are
you taking this to the VA right now, this issue?
Yeah. So to kind of circle back with Congresswoman Madeleine Dean, when we were having this conversation, I'm like, hey, are you ready to, think differently? And that's one thing I really respect about her. You probably never heard of her. She's not out there trying to get the cool little sound bites and all that stuff. She's there to represent the people that voted her in. And, to even give her credit after the Afghanistan debacle, I had some long conversations with her, and she was the only Democrat going into the meetings in Congress. It was all Republicans and one Democrat, but she went in there after the conversations her and I had. And I wrote a 25-page paper, all cited, no kidding, with all this stuff about things we need to do to start looking at things differently for our men and women who served, and not going down the traditional routes of just give them a bunch of opiates and numb them up and hopefully the problem goes away. There's no kidding, Al, you've said it many of times during our conversations. There's been no plant that's been studied more than a cannabis plant. There's a ton of research out there showing the benefits. We're seeing the benefits of psychedelics. These are things we need to start looking at and, helping veterans out to help rebuild them, to help them get that purpose. We're all essentially working dogs. I mean, we all want to go out there and do things. Well, we got to find something that veteran really wants to do, not just give them money every month and again, hope the problem goes away. Give them that purpose in life again. So her and I have been working on this. She was very upfront. She's like, Bryan, it's Congress. This is going to be a long slog of a fight to try to get through there. But she's advocating for our research. She's doing a lot. And hopefully we can get Congress to stop looking at this little stupid sound bites they always try to go out there and do. And, circle back on the people that we really should be looking at first to help. And that's our men and women who served in uniform. So hopefully we can get it there one day, but it's going to take all of us to keep talking about it, get things out there. And that's why I'm so hopeful we can get this movie made, because I think it's going to be a really big punch to the gut to everyone that's saying, boy, like I've kind of turned my back on the veterans, not in a mean way. You just think about other things, but there's these men and women who went out there and signed a blank check payable with their lives, and we're not doing much for them when they come back home. So, we'll see what we can do.
I never understood that, because I being in the military, I can certainly tell you every member of the military matters, and every member of the military is a strong character individual who has really put forth a lot for the people they love. And you would think that their participation, even if it's for just 2 years, would definitely be forever remembered by their country.
Yeah.
I noticed before we get, I know we're getting close to the end here, But I noticed in the write-up on the movie, it mentions that any profits from the movies would be going to veteran organizations in order to help vets.
Yeah. This isn't like a, hey, let's go out and win an Oscar and be famous. This is something that, we want to put forward to help the men and women who served. And again, this can be some sort of launch pad to help them go live that new life. That's what we're here to do. So no one's, we don't really, the only time we're talking about money is, man, we need to get some money so we can make this movie. But no one's saying, hey, what kind of car are you going to buy afterwards? That's
Right.
not even on the table. It's
Good.
how can this help men and women who served?
That's the goal.
Well, and that's certainly true. Being a hemp activist as well, I know that Al can also testify that we are hemp activists because we believe passionately that this plant can be of real benefit, but we're not making any money off of what we're doing. We do it because we love the people around us and we care about the future. So.
Yeah.
With that said, Bryan, why don't you let people know how they can reach out to you if they care to?
Yeah, I would just say, please, look at that website we have there on the GoFundMe, and anything you can do to help support this movie. That's where my passion lies right now, is really to get this thing built up. I'm also kind of had the call again. I just, I do a lot of reading and just how things are going right now in the world. I decided I want to kind of get back and help out some more on an analytical side. I don't want to kick in any more doors. I think that door might come back and knock me on my old ass. So right now I'm just working on a master's program in Homeland Security and Counterterrorism. And I'm actually using my VA benefits to help pay for that. So there's a lot of things out there to all the veterans. There's a lot of money on the table that you can use that you more than deserve. And I'm going to Penn State, and they actually kind of really helped me find the right bucket of money to pull from. I'm a 100% disabled veteran, a Purple Heart, got shot up in Afghanistan, and I was going to use what they would call your Chapter 33 benefits to pay for school. And they're like, well, why don't you use your Chapter 31 or see if you can. And the Chapter 31 is not more or less, hey, go out and get a college degree. It's use this money to get a degree so you can find a job. And I need to get this master's degree so I can go work for Homeland Security or one of the other agencies out there. So I'm actually using my Chapter 31 benefits that I didn't even really know existed. And I still have my Chapter 33 if I want to use that later in life, if I want to get a PhD or things like that. And there's also things that like my family can use off of this as well. My wife can go get another degree. My kids, their schooling will be paid for. So there's a lot of benefits out there. So I just really advocate for people, go out there, go meet with a counselor on your VA benefits and just find what is out there. Because unfortunately, the government will not advertise the money you can get. But if you work hard at it, you can find ways to get that taken care of. So,
and just in case anybody's worried, every benefit that Bryan is talking about, cannabis will not interfere with it.
Right.
Cannabis has nothing to do with anything. The VA doesn't care about your use of cannabis other than they want to know therapeutically how well it does for you. But you won't lose any benefits. So we just have to repeat that.
So that means that they can, if they're out there listening, that means they can also be for country and cannabis, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
There you go. Yep.
And
for country and cannabis. That's right.
And in order to read this, they're going to have to be able to keep the pace of the educational system around them. And to do that, there's a groovy network that can help in Canada, right, Al?
Yes, there is. Pace Network. Find us at paceradio.net.
Oh, here we go. Cameo appearance.
Yep. This is
cameo appearance.
Yeah, I gotta bring the dog up.
Yeah, with dog people, we everybody on this screen, folks, has a dog or more. What do you got? You got two of these guys, right?
Yeah, this is Juno, so they're a poodle. So his sister is literally jumping on us right now. I'll pull her up.
Yeah, well,
they are adorable.
And this is Chewy.
And yeah, the girl's got, well, she got a pink or a purple collar. Oh, yep. She's a girl. That's a girl. Yeah.
But she is the most fiery one of them all, though. She was the runt of the litter. And I think she just wants to prove her toughness every day. So she
Good
jumps
for her.
on you and attacks and does everything. So, right,
Good for
Chewy?
her.
There you go.
There
Very
you go.
pretty. Very pretty.
Well, and I want to thank our audience for tuning in today. Remember, the next time you see me, you'll know that it's time for hemp.
Look at all that money, yeah, the money that they've spent. Take another look and take some time for him. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation, yeah, it's time for hemp. Well, an acre of hemp makes 20 barrels of oil. No need for pesticides to poison all our soil. People got no food, they got no clothes, they got no rent. Well, it's time for hemp. Throughout Earth's history, hemp has been used, no mystery. Hemp was legal to pay your taxes for more than a century. Check your faxes. The founding fathers make sense to me. It's time to grow hemp legally. Think of all its uses. It's money that's well spent. Right now, no excuses. It's time for hemp. Sustainable green industry, that's our intent. A better place this world will be. It's time for hemp. Fuel and food and clothes and soap, housing, cars, yeah, cars, no joke. Henry Ford built a car of hemp. It's time for us to do it again. People be employed with balanced farming as it's meant. Right now, it's time for hemp. Hemp is a true necessity for the wealth and protection of this country. These are words of Jefferson Thomas. He grew hemp, why not us? It's time to lift the hemp ban. It's time to lift the hemp ban. Yes, we can. I know we can. We can make a difference. Yes, we can. Yes, I know we can. We can work together and lift the hemp ban. Look at all that money. Yeah, the money that they've spent. Take another look and take some time for you. Don't cut trees for paper, 'cause it hurts the environment. Stop deforestation. Yeah, it's time for hemp.